you try one diet after another and not realizing that restriction drives cravings and binging? It is so frustrating to go through the cycle of eating, then repenting, and then repeating the same cycle that distract you from living your vibrant, fulfilling life you crave. Would you like to learn some practical tips that can help you? Then you're in the right place. Our guest today is going to share some of her own and her client stories, how to mindfully eat and eat with intention so you can break this cycle of yo-yo dieting and eat, repent, repeat cycle to reach your optimal well-being. Welcome to Happy and Healthy Mind program, episode 135. I'm your host, Dr. Rozina-Happy. I help leaders reverse the effect of chronic stress on their body in form of weight or low energy and poor performance or mental or physical illnesses. You see, I've been helping people come out of severe depression and anxiety over the last 26 years as an MD psychiatrist. I realized that the root cause of many of both mental and physical illnesses is chronic stress. Therefore, in these programs, we share tips for managing stress, optimizing mental fitness, so you could eliminate stress-induced burnout, develop mental resilience, and live your best life with hope, health, and happiness. And in this program, our esteemed guests share their wonderful, unique approaches towards mental health. This program is for educational purposes, so please consult your healthcare professional for any medical advice. So today our guest is Dr. Michelle May. She's a former family physician and recovered yo-yo dieter. She's the founder of Am I Hungry? Mindful eating programs and trainings at mihungry.com. She's the author of Eat What You Love, Love What You Eat book series that teaches mindful eating to help individuals resolve mindless and emotional eating and senseless yo-yo dieting to live the vibrant life they crave. All right, so let's jump in. Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Rozina. I'm glad to be here.
All right, so let's start with discussing what made this topic important in your life.
Well, I think like many women, I started worrying about my body when I was fairly young. I started dieting at around 12 or 13 and yo-yo dieted my way all the way through high school, middle school, and into medical school. And actually was still yo-yo dieting when I went into my private medical practice. And I began to hear the same story from many of my patients, which made me question what we were doing. Like, if it's not working for me and it's not working for them, and it doesn't seem to be working for very many people, maybe what we're doing doesn't work. And so that was a door opener for me. I was fortunate at that time to also have two small children, and I observed this natural, amazing, wonderful curiosity and enjoyment of food, but I never saw them weigh their food or write it down or look it up. And I thought, they don't seem to be struggling with food and they're not doing any of these things that I'm doing. So maybe these things don't really help. And so that really started the process of beginning to understand that all of us are born with the instinctive ability to manage our eating effortlessly. And when we become focused on dieting and losing weight and eating the right foods or not eating the wrong foods, we actually miss focus. We lose the opportunity to focus on what's really important. And that's what drove me to develop the Am I Hungry program and to work with thousands of people over the last 25 years.
Wonderful, wonderful. So when you were doing these dietings and doing all the things that were not coming naturally, but our society promotes it, what kind of problems you were seeing that affecting your in form of your mental health or physical health or life satisfaction? How was it affecting you?
Greatly. Actually, greatly. And I'll add that many of the people I work with have significant dysfunction as well. For me, it was disordered eating. And when I use the phrase disordered eating, what I mean is that the focus on eating for fuel and enjoyment was really missing from my life. It became a life of its own, focusing on whether I was eating the right thing or not, and how much I was eating and how much I weighed, and all of these things that really aren't part of an instinctive relationship with food. That, as you know, can lead to a lot of stress. So I was already stressing myself out through achievement and trying to get into medical school and then being successful in medical school in my medical practice. So there was this sort of secret backstory that was happening the whole time that was indeed making me stressed out and unhappy with myself and ultimately not healthier at all, in any way, shape, or form. So it's a painful process. I call it, as you said in the intro, the eat, repent, repeat cycle. For me, it actually became an undiagnosed eating disorder. I never did seek treatment for it. And fortunately, I can happily say that's long behind me. But I think many of the people I work with have disordered eating and sometimes eating disorders too.
Yeah, yeah. I really like this word secret backstory because so many people have this in the background they may not realize. So, as I was doing my reflection, I realized that there was some secret backstory I was struggling with too, with the weight issues. Because, growing up, I did not have any problem with the weight. I was very thin. It was actually I was teased for being very thin. So growing up, that was not part of my consciousness. I never dieted until after having my kiddos, after I became a mother. And the pregnancy weight was kind of holding, and of course the chronic stress of going through the medical school and residency and settling in a new country and stuff, that was building up, and the weight kept on coming up. I didn't realize. So it was kind of my secret backstory, and it just came on forefront when my kid identified that there's always this discussion about food putting weight and what kind of food, or this food is too much cholesterol and this is too much sugar, and this constant focus on how it is related to weight. She can remember, and I did not recognize that. It was just
Wow.
in the background.
Yeah, if I could just reflect on what you're saying, and I'm sorry, I can't help it. I mean, I work with so many people, and I when I hear their stories, it really helps me think through what's really happening. So what you're describing here is diet culture. And diet culture describes this concept that is it's so deeply embedded in our culture that most of the time we don't question it or even recognize it. It literally becomes the air that we breathe. And so diet culture teaches us that some foods are good and some are bad, and some are healthy, some are unhealthy. And it also teaches us that some bodies are good and some bodies are bad, or causes us to assume that certain bodies are going to be naturally unhealthy. And what I've learned in many, many years of doing this work and in reading hundreds of papers on this topic is that none of that is really true. They're just assumptions, and that they actually keep people stuck. And so, what I would ask you is, it possible that starting to diet after you had your first child actually contributed to weight gain? We know diets don't work long term, but what they do cause us to do is begin to focus on food and then feel deprived and crave those foods. And then when we finally eat them, we can't stop. And so that's what I see in many of my clients.
I'll share a little more as we go through the discussion, but yeah, that is so true. The diet culture that many times we don't realize. And some of it is necessary so that, because there's also this epidemic of obesity and, overeating and abundant eating or wrong eating. And that does cause a lot of health problems. And so you do want to be aware of it. But I think the bigger problem is not being aware and getting sucked into this culture without awareness and making the decisions without properly assessing what is appropriate for your optimal health. Focusing on what is the number on the machine rather than the optimal health, which is more important than the number on the machine.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think even medical professions often confuse weight with health. And so that has become part of diet culture. And I think what I'm hearing you say, and certainly what I feel, is that we cannot change the person's weight in the present moment. It's about behaviors and choices that we're making. And so that's where I like to focus my energy.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Would love to really learn more and share with our audience more practical way of these techniques that you're talking about. But before we jump into that, can you just in a few sentences share what changes do you observe in people's life once they apply these tools? What changes did you observe in your life once you applied these tools?
Yes. So for me, when I stopped dieting and started learning to use my own inner wisdom to guide my eating, I had so much more time and energy. I wasn't feeling guilty about what I ate. I wasn't thinking about food all the time. I wasn't waking up in the morning thinking about what I could have for lunch or dinner, depending on what I ate yesterday. And it freed up my energy. It allowed me to use the fuel I consume to live a big, vibrant life. And so I took up pickleball and yoga and hiking and photography and watercolor and gardening and all of these things that ultimately have given me a better life and have made me healthier without any focus whatsoever on what I weigh or how many calories or grams of carbohydrates I put in my mouth.
That's wonderful. Won't all of us want to do that? I would love to do that. I'm sure a lot of our audience would like to do that. So, can you share some of those practical tips we can apply in our life?
Yes. So I teach the mindful eating cycle. So, really, what if you can kind of think of it like this? A lot of the decisions that we make about eating are not really decisions, they're made on autopilot or habit. The habit may be, oh, that looks good, or oh, I should get my share. Or they might be based on diet culture rules like, oh, that's a bad food, or I shouldn't be eating this, or I'll eat it all because I'm going to start my diet on Monday, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, at least that's how it was for me. And so when I began working with people and trying to help them, I needed a structure to help them become more conscious about these decisions that they're making. So I developed the mindful eating cycle, which consists of 6 decision points. And here they are briefly. Why do I eat? When do I feel like eating? What do I eat? How do I eat it? How much of it do I eat? And where do I invest the energy that I consumed? So it's why, when, what, how much, and where. And all of these decision points actually answer all the questions that come up when I'm working with a patient or a client around their eating issues, and they say, "Oh, I binged the other night," or "Oh, I really blew it." That's their words, not mine. And they begin to tell me the story. I can place all of the information in one or more of those decision points and then help bring them awareness about what they did and why they did it. It's only when we understand why that we can begin to solve the challenges. Does that make sense?
Totally, totally. And why don't we take me as an example? I was feeling like I blew it yesterday. And so maybe you can take my example and walk me through these steps so that our audience can also benefit.
Perfect. Let's do it. That's fun. Okay, so when I'm doing this, and I'll tell you this as a professional, I train other health and wellness professionals to do this work. And so what I train them to do is to draw the eating cycle in the middle of a page. I have my clients do it too. Draw the mindful eating cycle in the middle of the page, and then we organize the information. You don't need to do this. I'm going to do this. I'll coach you through the process. You just tell the story and I'll figure out where the information goes, and then I'll repeat it back to you in the way that I heard it.
Sounds good to tell
Tell
you.
me about, you said that you blew it last night. Just tell me what happened.
Well, I came home and I ate my dinner, and then I was kind of munching a little bit, and then I ate a whole fruit because it was really looking ripe. And then I was just wrapping up for the night, putting the dishes in the dishwasher and packing the food. And then I saw the food and I was still feeling hungry. So I ate my dinner again. I ate again. So I ate double dinner, and then I was paying for it in the sense that I was feeling really full. I usually don't eat. So 6 o'clock is my dinner time. So 6 to 7 I eat. And then I don't eat much afterwards. But
Mhm.
because I ate some nuts and the fruit, and then again ate my kind of meal, I got really, really full, and I was regretting. The cycle
Uh-huh.
was what you say. I was repenting. I was feeling guilty, and I was feeling full, and so that's what happened yesterday.
Okay, wow. So that is a very classic story. And I just want to commend you for sharing that. I think it's really important for us to be able to look at these episodes non judgmentally. You're right. We get so much shame and regret around what we do and feeling guilty, and that can keep us trapped in old behaviors. So, one of the things that I can do for people as their coach is to begin to reflect with curiosity instead of judgment. So I'll tell you what I heard, but I have a few questions for you first. So when you ate your dinner last night, was it at your usual 6 o'clock dinner time?
It was later than usual because after work I went for grocery shopping, and so I came home late. And
Okay.
so then I ate late.
Were you hungrier than usual? Now, I don't have time to teach a hunger and fullness scale, but suffice it to say that hunger, this is important, hunger is a physical set of symptoms that our body gives us when we need fuel. So most of us recognize it by something happening in our stomach, growling or grumbling or, gnawing or something. Maybe a falling blood sugar where we feel low energy, tired, irritable, or hangry, maybe even shaky or headache. So, based on all of that, do you think you were hungry by the time you got home from the grocery store and got ready to eat your dinner?
I was, I had broken my structured eating for the day because like I didn't eat as good of a breakfast in the
Mm-hmm.
morning. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I did eat it. I ate very little for lunch. And so I was kind of snacking on some fruits, and then I snacked on something before leaving work. So I was not totally hungry, but I
Mm-hmm.
think I was off my cycle of like my routine of like, eating a really good breakfast, eating really good lunch, snacking a little bit at 3 o'clock, and then eating my dinner at 6 o'clock. So my structure was off because I didn't eat properly the morning and afternoon.
Well, so this is a great example. So, mindful eating is about the present moment. And that is about making decisions right now. And so we have to always check into what's happening right now. What you're describing is about having figured out for yourself what generally works well for you. And as long as you approach that structure, not with rigidity, but with some flexibility, and then awareness. So you got off of your usual pattern and intended to eat dinner a little bit later. And so then the question becomes relevant. Was I even hungry by the time I ate dinner? Because if sometimes people will be so hungry that they have difficulty. Sometimes they have snacked and then they're not hungry at all. And so dinner doesn't even feel satisfying. So can you guess, were you at least a bit hungry or moderately hungry by the time you sat down?
Yeah, I think I was not very hungry because I had like, snacked at 5 instead of my 3 o'clock. And
Yeah,
it was just routine. So it was habitual. I come home, I eat. So
right,
food was,
right.
and I picked up and I ate, and I didn't even realize how much or. what I ate.
This is a good example also of really two overlapping eating cycles. So let's talk about the dinner cycle first. So if we go back to the model of the mindful eating cycle, I never start with why. It's the first decision point because it drives all of the decisions that follow. But if we knew why we did it, we wouldn't do it. So I always start with when. And so what I heard from you is that your day was not as structured as usual. You usually have a pattern of eating that works for you, and you got off your pattern yesterday and ended up having a later than usual snack, doing your grocery shopping, coming home for dinner, and then eating it more on autopilot rather than because it was a time that you were actually hungry.
Correct.
So that's the when and a little bit of the how. I don't need to know what you ate. In fact, many times the challenges that we have aren't really about the food. But I have a question for you. Was your dinner satisfying? Was it something you liked, or was it something you thought you should eat for some reason?
No, it was an appropriate dinner. It was not something I should or not. It was the usual way I eat.
Okay. All right. And when you ate it, I'm asking about the how decision point. When you ate it, were you sitting down at a table, or were you in front of the TV, in front of your computer, your phone, etc.? Uh-oh, I'm seeing some. Okay. Again, no judgment.
I sat in front of TV.
Okay. All right. And the reason that's important is that sometimes when we eat while we're distracted, we're not as satisfied. We don't notice how our body is feeling. We don't even really notice how good the food is or not good. And so we end up eating and then really not having a clear experience of it. And so we can actually want more food because we don't even remember what we just ate. So, something to keep in mind, you'll have to pay more attention to that as you eat over the next few days to see if that might be a factor. And then for your dinner, did you eat a usual amount, the amount you typically would have for dinner?
I tried to not eat as much, but as I said, like, you're so right. I was sitting in front of in front of TV. I was just so exhausted. I picked up the food, I sat down, I ate. I don't even know how much I ate. The
Yeah,
only memory I have is the empty plate that I picked up and put it in the dishwasher.
exactly. I imagine probably half or 100% of your listeners can relate to that. So that's what happens, right? We just eat on autopilot. We're not aware and we're not necessarily satisfied. So in terms of the where, when the last question in the mindful eating cycle is where does the energy go? So let me ask you, at that point, did you feel particularly full or uncomfortable, or just no recollection of it, not remarkable?
No recollection. The first time I ate the dinner, I don't remember.
The first eating cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if we come back to the why, I wouldn't maybe usually do this with a client, but because I want to get to the second eating cycle, because that's the meaningful one here. It sounds like the why was just a routine, a habit, a busy day, tired, kind of off schedule, and it just happened, which leads us into the next eating cycle, which is the snacking and the munching and then the next meal. So if we go to the first decision then, which is when you ate, was it fairly soon after your dinner that you ate the nuts and then later the fruit?
Maybe an hour or two, because that happened, as I said, I started wrapping up the kitchen, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when I saw the food and it was attractive. And I said, okay, well, I feel like I'm not full. So I just wanted to eat one bite or two bites. And
Mm-hmm.
I ended up eating the whole bread and, almost the same amount of food that I usually eat. And that I did that after I ate the fruit. So, so it was maybe couple of hours, 1 to 2 hours after,
Mm-hmm.
just before going to sleep.
Okay. All right. We talked a little bit about hunger, and obviously we're looking at this retrospectively. Do you think you were actually hungry the second, third, or fourth time that you ate? Or do you think that it's possible it was more about something else? And you're the healthy, happy mind person. So do you think it's possible it was more about stress or something else, anything else?
I think it is always a combination, right? So I was stressed, the day was really overwhelming. I had some very difficult cases that I handled yesterday. Like it went so back to back to back that, it was at at the end of the day when I went and was talking to the staff saying, "Hey, I didn't even get the breather to come ask you guys how you're doing." And
Mm.
and I also remember that when I went to talk to my staff, I also picked a Snicker.
Mm. Yeah, so this is really fabulous because what you're doing is when you can go back and look at an episode like this and use the structure of the mindful eating cycle instead of, oh, I was so bad, I overate, I'm going to be good tomorrow. That gets us nowhere. That just gets us right back into the eat, repent, repeat cycle. What we're doing here is we're trying to turn this into a learning experience. Don't miss the lesson. What can I learn from this? So we'll fast forward this a little bit based on just what you've shared so far. What would you do differently the next time? Maybe what would you do differently during the day? What would you do differently if you come to the end of the day and you notice you're off schedule and feeling stressed and you see food that you're worried about? By the way, there was another little trigger in there I think I picked up on about, well, it's going to go bad. I better eat it so I don't waste it. Is that possible?
That usually happens, but this yesterday it just looked good. And I think you're right. When the first time I ate the food, I did not even realize what I ate.
Mhm.
And then when I was wrapping up, I saw it. I was present. I saw it and not completely present. 'Cause if I was completely present, I would not have eaten. But I think I saw it and it looked really good. It was really nutritious vegetable dish that my mom had made. And so that's when I actually enjoyed eating. The first time
Mhm.
around, I did not realize that I was eating.
Yeah. And when you've had a really stressful day, the pleasure that you remember getting from food can be very much of a draw, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with emotional eating. We all eat for comfort. We all eat for pleasure. We all eat for connection. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if you had eaten that way the first time when you were actually hungry, maybe it would have been less likely to lead into a second meal and a few snacks in between.
You're right. You're right.
What
Um,
would you do differently? Anything?
Yeah, I think I would follow my own teaching. So I like to eat on time, so structured eating.
Mm,
And then I would eat mindfully and would not sit in front of the TV the first time when I ate. And if I would take the snack, because one of the reasons I took the late snack was actually I you know how there's a principle that you should not go grocery shopping when you're really hungry. And that usually happens when you're going to the grocery shopping at the end of the day, right? So that's why
hmm
I ate a little late snack so that I don't feel that hungry while I'm shopping. So what I would do is I would do the snack if it is necessary, but keep the portion really small.
Or eat it earlier so you're hungry again by dinner, something like that.
Correct, correct. If I would have thought
Beautiful.
about that at 3 o'clock, which I usually do, but sometimes you kind of lose track of time. So, for the learning is that I would give more attention to my alarm, 3 o'clock alarm, and do the snack so that I do not feel so hungry before dinner time.
I would only make one addition to what you're saying. And I love that you were able to take those lessons away. That's going to be so much more useful than beating yourself up for what happened because it just happened. These things happen to us all the time, even you and I who do this work in our professional lives as well. And that is that I don't think most of us need to eat on a rigid schedule. What I'm guessing is might be happening, and what I would suggest for your listeners who are trying to figure out what to do is don't set a rigid schedule for yourself unless it really works best in your lifestyle and your work and your work schedule or your family schedule. But try to adapt your eating to your own hunger rhythms. So many of us, we may be rushing around in the morning and we don't notice that we're hungry. And then we end up skipping breakfast. And then we're starving by mid morning. And then we eat a snack. And then we're not hungry for lunch and we miss lunch. And then we're binging in the afternoon. You know how that whole cycle goes. And so having an intention to eat in the morning before your day gets overly busy, and then having food and hopefully a time that you can eat in the midday that would be your lunchtime, your traditional lunchtime, and hopefully you're actually hungry for it. Because if you're just eating by the clock, it's not nearly as satisfying and it doesn't really honor your own body's needs. But learning to have food prepared and having a schedule such that you can eat when you actually need food really helps you keep your body fed, but not fed preventively. We're not eating to prevent hunger. We're eating when we're hungry because, as my grandmother used to say, hunger is the best seasoning. Food just tastes better when you're hungry. And I kind of wonder if that's why you were so tempted to just sit in front of the TV. You weren't really hungry. You were just eating out of habit and it didn't hold your attention. It really wasn't where your mind was at that point because your body wasn't needing food yet. Maybe?
Yeah. As I said, like, I ate the late snack and my body was not feeling that hungry at that time. I think one of the reasons, and I'm kind of going to do a little disagreement to come to an agreement.
Yep.
There is this school of thought that you should only eat when you're hungry, which
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of sharing. And then there is this structured eating recommendation that comes from another school of thought. And I think both has their pros and cons because many of my patients are struggling with either, burnout or anxiety or depression. Many times their hunger cycle is off.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also seen that a lot of people who are like, either drinking a lot of coffee or energy drinks, and then when you go chronically, you have not fed your body properly when you did have hunger, then
Mm-hmm.
hunger cycle also gets disturbed. So in those people, to try to get back on proper eating cycles,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I recommend structured eating.
Mm-hmm.
So
I see.
what's your thought about people who have who don't feel hungry and they would go for the whole day and then they would eat because either they're kind of feeling dizzy or shaky and then they realize that I really need to eat something.
Well, I think what's interesting about it is I suspect you and I probably end up in the same place. And what's different is I do it from the inside out. I first teach people how hunger is our instinctive cue for eating and acknowledge that many of us have learned to ignore hunger. Or one of the reasons people aren't hungry is because they're actually eating so often for other reasons that their body never gets hungry. And also, I don't want to make people ever feel that they should do something. In fact, I don't even think you have to be hungry to eat. I think what you need to do is make a decision. I know I'm not hungry. I'm going to eat anyway. And you kind of did that yesterday. You made a decision that I don't want to go grocery shopping and be hungry. Now, if you weren't hungry before you ate the snack, then you didn't need the snack. It was just a mental rule that you were following through on. But oftentimes what we're really trying to do is give people an inner expert, a way of making decisions that is always with them, that isn't about a clock or an external rule, but it's okay, I feel like eating. Let me check in. Am I even hungry? Or it's lunchtime and I don't feel like, or I don't feel hungry. Let me check in. Am I actually hungry? Let me do a little body, mind, heart scan and look for symptoms of hunger. And maybe I'm just missing it. Maybe I've been so busy or had too much caffeine and I'm not paying attention to my own body's signals. So, what we're doing in this way is reconnecting people with their body wisdom so that they have a skill that they can turn to for the rest of their lives without being stuck in rigid rules that kind of fall apart as soon as the day doesn't go exactly as it's supposed to. I imagine that most of us probably end up with somewhat of a consistent schedule. We just maybe get there from a different path.
That's true. And that's why, like in medicine, we know that one pill doesn't fix everybody. Everybody has different paths and their unique genetics and unique circumstances,
Yes.
the life experiences, their work settings, and activity level. Sometimes it's also the activity level. If you're not being active, your body may not need as much calories as somebody who is doing a lot of physical activity. So
That's right.
again, yes, listening to the body. We're having so much fun. I didn't realize we are almost out of time. So let's kind of wrap up and let our audience know if they want to learn more about you and your work, how can they reach you?
So, our website, this is easy to remember after what I just said, is amihungry.com. So it's amihungry.com, amihungry.com. And on that first page, you're going to find several things that will help you. You can download the first chapter of my book, Eat What You Love, Love What You Eat, where you'll see the mindful eating cycle and a lot more detail about the decisions I described to you. And you can even try doing it for yourself the next time you have an overeating episode.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, would you give us your best take home message?
Well, whenever you feel like eating, pause for a few moments and check in and ask yourself, am I hungry? If you're hungry, then next step is, how hungry am I? What do I want to eat? If you are not hungry, this is an opportunity. Why do I feel like eating? Am I bored? Am I stressed? Am I lonely? Is this a habit? What is going on that's causing me to feel like eating? By simply tuning in and asking yourself, am I hungry? You begin to understand so much more about why you eat, and you can learn how to meet your body's needs even better than any diet rule could ever do.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. I got a lot of tips today. My favorite tip from today was, as you summarize, ask if I am hungry and don't sit in front of TV while eating.
Yes. And if you do find yourself distracted while you eat, just tune your attention back to what you're doing periodically, just so that you're not eating on autopilot. If you love to eat, act like it.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Let me ask our audience, what is your favorite tip? Please share in the comment or send us a message so we can also learn what is helping you. And if you have any questions, please send us our way. Maybe we can invite Dr. May again next time to answer your questions. And if you found value, we have additional gift for you. Dr. May has been very gracious to share her article, 101 Things to Do Besides Eat. And you can get that article by going to our website, happyandhealthymind.com, and you can download the gift and all the other resources shared by our wonderful guest on this program for free. It is a gift for you as an appreciation for being a loyal follower. And if you love this program, show it by liking and subscribing. If it benefited you, guess what? Others would also benefit. We all want to make a difference. So all you have to do is click the share button, and when others benefit, you get to bask in the benefit too. And I'm so excited to share about a new offering we are doing. It's called Reverse Burnout Coaching. Lose weight, gain energy, and perform at your best. You learn a lot of personalized medicine tools with thought training, and you can apply for strategy call today by going to reverseburnoucoaching.com. All right, so let me leave you with one question. Every day is the new day, new opportunity to make a change. What is one change you're going to make today to make your life better, to live a happier and healthier life? Make that decision and start acting on it right now. making those small changes, even 1% change, is going to transform your life and help you achieve your goals and live your best life. On that note, stay safe, happy, and healthy. Until next time, Dr. Rozina.